How you do, Paul? Right, I'm going to show it. Where's McDonald? Right. I got that wee while ago, yeah. Yes. It's holding on to the lifestyle, that's the job now. Your specs. If you could maybe put yourselves where the members, can we get members in the middle so they can hear and see what's going on? Morning everyone, welcome to this site visit. The purpose of the meeting here is for the members to observe this site and see the site. It's a planning application for Springfield. On you go. Sorry. It's a planning application for Springfield Properties. It's a land 123 metres southeast of Rosebank, Kingsteps, Lochloy, Nairn. It's Ward 18, Nature Development, Residential Development and Associated Infrastructure. I'll just introduce all the members of the planning committee and all the people who are here so we all know who we all are. I'm Jimmy Gray, I'm an elected member of Milburn Ward in Inverness and I chair the South Planning Application Committee.
I'm Kevin Cockdale, the Planning Officer.
Drummond, the Area Planning Manager.
Earl Wobbin, Councillor for Building and Strategy.
George Cruikshank, Councillor for Airdrie Loch Ness.
Ben Thompson, Councillor for Coolin Mallig.
Ronnie Balfour, elected member for Culloden and Addis, yeah.
Duncan McPherson, Councillor for Inverness South.
Ron McWilliam, Councillor for Inverness Nest Side.
Andrew Darby, Inverness South.
Pippa Hadley from Badenoch and Shaftesbury.
Wally Fraser, Councillor for Nairn.
Tom Heggie, Councillor for Nairn.
Susan Blease, Principal Solicitor.
Mark Clough from Highland Council's Transport Planning Team.
Behind you.
Sorry, Councillor Saggers from Nairn.
Okay, then the purpose of the site visit is purely and simply for the members of the committee to observe the physical characteristics of the site. Any of the applicant's representatives can point out these issues are as regards to physical characteristics, and we've got a couple of representatives from objectors who can do the same as we go through. But if we can stick to that, purely and simply these issues, the merits or otherwise of the application will be decided back in the chamber. Okay?
Good morning everyone. I've organised this site visit for members and we're going to stop in 4 locations. this is the principal location, and I can describe quite a lot of the features of the site to elected members, but there are things that I will not mention at this location, but I will pick up in other locations. So you're not going to get the whole script now as set out in your committee papers. We're on the east side of Nairn, and in the last 20 years Nairn has expanded on its eastern side down the Lochloy Road. That was the road that you used from the trunk road that came off in the minibus this morning, and it's come through to the latest development that is near completion, which is the Meadowlea development by Springfield, using Averon Road. There's another road that's very similar, Dalmain Road, just up past the houses on our left-hand side. These would be the two principal means of access to the land, which is upon which this application is set. It extends to most of the fields that you can see in front of you, to nearly 7 hectares. Kingsteps houses, the rear of them on the south side of Kingsteps is, as you see, to the north. Over to the east, there's a line of conifer trees that provide a visual boundary to the site, and then the remainder of the site, you can't quite see the bottom of, lies to the south, and this would be the western boundary of the development. The existing approval of housing and landscape will give way to the plans that are set before you, and you've got in your pack of papers a layout of the development showing this is where we are at the moment, the 2 roads leading into the site, and the development landscape. I wish to point out, for the benefit of members, the topography. It is an undulating field, it's not absolutely level flat, there is a range of hummocks and hollows. There is a stream which you can see, probably best highlighted by the woodland and bushes that run through the field. This is a stream that runs from the east to the west and down to the coast, and will be used for the discharge of treated surface water as it comes out from the site. The development will take place largely to the south of that watercourse, to the land, what I'm pointing out now, which is down to the south, to the east on the right hand side, and also on the other side of the watercourse on this rising ground to the left. There will be the provision of improvements to the existing road network and transport network. There are public bus services that run through the existing housing estates, and a package of mitigation has been offered to the council through this application and will be secured by condition and legal agreement, which will provide, for example, bus shelters at the bus stops. There will be cycleway links that will link through this development onto the road at the Kingsteps, and I'll point out that in more detail when we get there. In terms of location of facilities for this area, those are largely found in Nairn, with health services and community services and so on. But in terms of primary education, this falls within the catchment area of the Aldern Primary School. Now, a review of the catchment areas of schools is taking place at the moment, but there is a need to consider school transport, for example, and the costs of that and how that's going to be met through developer contribution is probably the best avenue with this developer to transport primary kids to Aldern Primary. But that commitment that would be made would be under that educational review, and if the catchments change and relationships change, so those provisions change with that decision that the council would make in future months, years, whatever. I think that's about it in terms of this location. I'm just happy to answer any questions that members may have.
Members, any questions, queries? Councillor Balfour.
That stream in front of it, is that a perpetually flowing stream? Okay, it might be dry in this especially hot summer, but it's normally...
We'll go and see that at our next point, and you'll actually be standing on a bridge over that.
Any further queries, members?
Mr McLaughlin, on the plans you've got there, it mentions a sewage pumping station. Where's that going? On the landscape.
If you see the existing housing at Kingsteps,
Yeah.
you see Kingsteps House, which is the house on the left-hand side,
Right.
and then Lomond.
Yeah.
Pumping station would be probably, I can't guess at the moment from the map, but I'm talking about probably 50 metres to 70 metres to the northwest of that house. So if you see the plans there at the moment, development is there.
So that's on top of the high ground.
Just not the top of the high ground, just to the west of it.
If it fails, that pump fails, which I've been told it's not unheard of, the sewage that overflows from it will come down and into this burn here, which flows across the golf course.
Hold on, I think.
And into
hold on,
into the
hold on, please, hold on.
And the
Hold on,
UNESCO
please.
Ramscar site.
I'm asking you to hold on, please.
I'm finished up.
Well, okay.
Go on.
We're here to talk about the physical characteristics of this. We're not. I can't get into speculation of what may or may not happen.
Well, why are we here? Why were we
Well,
invited to
well,
come and ask questions
well,
if we can't ask questions?
I mean, I think that's a key point.
Well,
It's a key point, I agree
you may think
totally.
it's a key point, but I can only explain to you what we can do on a site visit. Now, my role here is to ensure that we carry out what we do on a site visit. Okay, that's my role.
So that's all you care about, what happens on the
One
site
at a time,
visit?
one at a time, one at a time.
That's charming, very caring, thank you so much. So
Well,
why are we here if we can't ask questions?
Well,
No, it's funny,
that's
is it?
your decision.
I don't think it's funny.
well, that's your decision why you're here.
No,
I'm
I'm here because I want to ask
Okay.
questions, got a whole range of questions here.
That's-
I'm a layman, I know
listen.
nothing about planning. I've lived here for 28 years, my daughters live here, my grandchildren live here, and I understand the roads haven't been adopted by the council.
Listen, this is a site
Please don't
visit.
put your hand up to me.
Well, we can either hold this meeting away as a site visit, or we can't. We can only do it one way. It's a site visit. That's the only way we can do it. Yes.
Chairman, can I make a few observations
Yes, you
with your permission, and you can strike me down if I go off? I'll do most of my talking over at Kingsteps, because I represent residents in Kingsteps.
Okay.
I'll make one point. You'll notice a line of little trees along here. Which is
You
part
face
of
the
the
crowd,
landscape.
Mark. Can't hear you, sorry.
hear you.
Can't hear.
The line of trees, I was pointing out to the council, the line of trees along here, because this Meadowlee, this was intended to be the final phase of Meadowlee housing. The trees were there largely to screen this development from the countryside. Unfortunately, there may be a good few years before they effectively do that, and quite a few of us may not be around by that time. But the point was that this was the extreme end of Meadowlee. The other point I would make, we mentioned that the sewage, obviously sewage doesn't flow up the hill, doesn't flow uphill, hence we have to put in a pumping station to service the houses on the far side of the burn there. Mr McCorkindale's pointed out the waterway, which is quite overgrown, but it actually, if you look at the site plan, it takes a dog leg, it follows the line of these bushes, then it turns down towards Kingsteps and then dog legs back. Again, we can see that from the Kingsteps site. We have made a proposal that that waterway forms a natural boundary for the site, and therefore any development should be limited up to the waterway. That's our suggestion, which we've made in our objections from Kingsteps. That would enable the developer to build best part of 90 houses, keeping the remaining part south, so north of the waterway as a greenfield buffer zone separating Kingsteps from Meadowlee. Something I think you should give consideration to. Final point, Mr. Chairman. As you drive through Meadowlee, you'll observe this is what planners and architects would call an urban housing estate. Street lights, pavements, curbs, main access road, cul-de-sacs coming off. Observe that as you drive through. When you come to Kingsteps, I would like you to note the character of Kingsteps. Totally different. It's not an urban housing estate, it's a country rural estate. The density of the houses over there are about a third of what they are on this site. And that's the main objection, is the overdevelopment of the site. Too many houses, which contrast with the the rural location of Kingsteps. So if you observe that as you go through, and I'll point that out as we go back round to Kingsteps. Thank you, Chairman.
Any further?
It's worth pointing out, Mr. Chairman, that the original plan for Curran Street, which is this street along here, where I live, did not call for semi-detached houses, in which I live, and I'm very happy with, I have to say, but they were originally large, quite expensive houses, which Springfield could not sell, so they reapplied for planning to have a different style of house. So we have about at least five extra houses from the original plan on Curran Street. What's to stop Springfield not being able to sell expensive houses, 400,000-ish on this site, then applying for planning to have two houses built on that large site and increasing the density?
Listen, I do apologise about this. You're into speculation. I can't have speculation.
It's a track record.
If you have any issues you want to point out physically,
it's a track record.
Then we can listen to that.
I'd like to point out the badgers that live in this area.
Yes.
Can I just say that this whole area has actually flooded in the past?
Yes.
Very badly. And the horses and everything had to be moved up to higher ground. They were absolutely totally flooded out. Now our concern is that if they start developing this site, that if flooding, because there's apparently yellow clay under this ground which doesn't let the water drain down,